Yo, 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 what's good, YouTube? What's good? It's Stormy B Man, and I am back welcoming you to Post Fight Show with Stormy B Man for this Saturday, December 18th, 2021. And we're calling this one the Post Fight Show featuring, man, we had a bunch of fights today. So let's just say featuring the assortment of battles that took place on DAZN, pay-per-view, FS1, and Fox. And seeing that I didn't get a chance to catch the Fox broadcast, but I was able to listen in with the brother KQKC because my streaming service was acting up. I was more than a round and a half behind his broadcast, so I just listened to the broadcast and I didn't entertain the pay-per-view. Fresh off of it, we got my man Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens in the building. Salute to you, Reggie. I was listening to your call. It is always great when a sudden knockout happens because Reggie's reaction, man, you got to get it on tape. It's like it's always entertaining when Reggie has that chance to tell you. He paints a perfect picture of it. I just pictured Paul Woodley on the canvas snoring face down. So I'm sure that was pretty close. But what's going on with you, Reggie? How you doing?
Doing good, man. What a way for them to close that fight out. Fight was lackluster, but the way he knocked that dude out, oh my God. Tyrone might have to go into witness protection, man. That was a brutal knockout, man.
And you said he was clowning
Bad.
before the knockout, right? So he deservedly got it, huh?
Yeah, he
Reggie?
deserved it, man. Tyrone was doing that in his. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine. I just put the picture of their fight poster up on the screen. That's all I did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, Tyrone, even in his MMA career, he had these moments to where he has fights to where he can run through guys and then he'll just become lackluster. I've never seen a guy that lose so much motivation. And even in the corner, the coach had to dig into Tyrone because he's one of these guys that just leaves his soul in the corner. He doesn't come back out there. He comes into that moment of the fight, and once again, he's lured to sleep, leaving too much out there, being lazy. And I seen Jake throw that jab right hand behind it. And as soon as I'm saying, man, he needs to throw that same series of punches because it's there, he throws that big right hand as Tyrone lets that left hand go, and it caught him right near the ear. His body immediately went limp. He looked like Pacquiao, matter of fact, when Marquez knocked him out. It was probably worse than that because the way his whole face slammed on the ground and his feet clicked over together, like it was bad. It looked like he was trying to crawl up under a foxhole or something, trying to crawl under a tunnel, how flat he laid. And it's not gonna be a good look. And this dude, Jake Paul's star done elevated, and it's gonna be a lot of guys clamoring to get the next fight. Tyron Woodley should have been the guy to knock him out, but he went in here doing what Tyron Woodley has been known to do in fights, fall asleep, and it cost him. This is probably the matter of fact, this is probably the first time Tyron Woodley's been knocked out. So no MMA fighter has done this to him, but an internet content creator knocked him out.
Man, I'm telling you, some people can't help but make themselves memes, and some people can't help but make themselves what they call it going viral. It's like, man, that's crazy. So tell us how it played out, because I didn't see it, Reggie. I was just listening to your call of it. The you watched the whole card, right? The whole pay-per-view card.
Yeah. You want to know about all the events on there?
Yeah, you can talk about it because we're just gonna go through a little bit of everything that was happening today. So I'll let you take the floor with that since you totally tuned in to it.
All right. But yeah, I mean, today was loaded with some damn fights. So many fights on today. UFC, the Zone. Somebody said Fox Sports 2 was on. I didn't even know Fox had a number 2 network. FS1. I mean, dang, these dudes loaded up today. But in this one, you had and I was between fights, so I didn't watch everything. I didn't start off with the opening card to the pay-per-view. I did catch the Darren Williams versus Frank Gore. That was pretty entertaining. I was shocked to see that those two look like they can fight. Their stance and everything, they had pretty solid base. But like Darren Williams said, man, I'm gonna sit my old ass down and lead us to the real boxers. Like, man, I'm one and done. I ain't coming back in here. But these guys were catching each other. They started off good. Darren Williams is a very aggressive fighter. If he was younger, Darren Williams probably could have done something as a fighter. He looked pretty good as far as the stance. They didn't look like sloppy guys. They look better than those dudes I seen fighting on ESPN yesterday.
Oh,
very
man.
good base, but it was Darren Williams catching Frank Gore. Frank Gore did something that no fighter should do, and that's turn your back. He forgot that you protect yourself at all time. He thought he'd get timeouts in here, and a waterman's supposed to bring him a Gatorade bottle. He turned his back, looking outside the ropes. And you watch his face as he see that punch coming, and Darren Williams catch him. And he started ducking up under these shots. Darren was on his head trying to knock him out, but he caught Darren Williams a time, like 2 times. But it was just funny watching those two go at it. But Darren looked like he can really box. He ended up winning that. Then it went into Amanda Serrano versus Girl Gutierrez. I wish you could see the photos of Gutierrez's face. But that girl never relented against Serrano. That girl fought her way through that whole fight. And at times, she was giving Serrano some issues. She was giving Serrano some real serious issues. In the first round, Serrano put a mad attack up on that woman where I thought the fight was going to be stopped. And she was no match for Serrano. In the second round, the girl comes to life. She comes to life in that second round. And she began to tag Serrano, landing some good shots. Kind of start going back and forth. Then Serrano makes an adjustment on it, begin to just pick her apart, just walk her down, popping her with shots. Both of this girl's eyes are swelled up. This girl nose gets busted. Her nose starts to swell up. But she fought the whole way through. This girl never backed up and just started to keep on fighting. And then you had this main event to where they kind of clinched a lot. It was doing a lot of holding. But like I said, once Tyron Woodley started to lazy out, relax a little bit too much, not lead off. He did too much clinching. Jake Paul fired off that jab right hand. I seen that was a nice shot. I'm like, man, you can go back for that one again. The knockout's there. As soon as I say knockout, he lands that big right hand, and Tyron Woodley just arms. If his arms are like this, they immediately drop. His body leaned over. His face smacked the ground. His feet turned out like this, and he was asleep. And he was out unconscious for a long time, and they had to gently pull him up. I seen the ref trying to balance his neck out. And it was just like, that message is bad, man. Not a good look at all for Tyron. And I don't feel sorry for him because Tyron does a lot of this stuff to where I'm surprised it didn't happen in his MMA career more often, where he just falls asleep. But that was a good knockout.
Well, I'll tell you, man, they're going to continue this thing with this guy and his brother because there's now an audience for that, proven by the fact that, someone like yourself took the time out, even though we had real boxing cards on, to tune in and call it and stuff like that. So it's definitely just going to be a part of things going forward. I particularly don't have much stock in it because I do know the seriousness behind what can happen to someone that don't have the real training. And I'm telling you, going in the gym for 3 months or 6 months or something like that is still, enough. And as long as nobody gets really hurt, really bad, this is going to be, it's going to continue as it is. But the moment that someone gets hurt, and I think that to a certain degree, it's being controlled so that doesn't happen. It has to be because, dude, what happened to Nate Robinson? He could have really ended up in a bad way. He's just fortunate that he didn't. But yeah, it's something to think about. But it's here to, I think it's here to stay. And we're going to see more of these matchups that are not really matches, but they're mismatches. But at the same time, if it's benefiting one individual, meaning like the Paul brothers, over the person that's participating in there with them, that will grow old and tired, soon. So I think them mixing in these other guys like Darren Williams, like you said tonight, and everything, getting someone else in there, other faces, that'll help it to continue on. But how long is yet to be determined. Those women that you mentioned, just like on DAZN tonight, a shot in the arm for women's boxing, man. It's like something in the water of women's boxing kicked in when Clarissa Shields went over to MMA to start a career there because of her unhappiness with the purses and the proper representation economically for the women boxing. And it seems like the other ladies have stepped up their games like double time. And as you mentioned about the women on that card, there was a women fight on the DAZN card this evening that I like to talk about. But can you tell us a little bit more, Reggie, about those women that fought on that pay-per-view card tonight?
As far as record wise, I'm not sure. I know Serrano is the lady who Jake Paul has been putting on, who has been putting in good position where he's kind of been giving her a platform to fight right behind him as the undercard. Oh, let me mute my second page. But fighting as the undercard for his fights to give her the exposure, which has worked tremendously for her. I was hearing somebody talking about her and Katie Taylor as possibly like a $1 million fight between the both of the women for purses. And I can see that being something big. And if they can probably put on his next pay-per-view as a co-main event again. But Serrano is just one of these top skilled young ladies. Serrano can fight from any stance. She has the balance of looking like she can fight like a swift-footed man. That's the most I can compare her to. She doesn't fight like any of these other women. I don't think it's anybody who fights in a better style than her. That girl who fought on DAZN fights as well too. She's well balanced in her skill and style. And I watched that fight too. Like they're both highly skilled young ladies, and it's just a matter of stepping them up. But I think this is probably the fight that Eddie Hearn, who I think has Katie Taylor, is probably going to make with her and Serrano. That should be a good fight. But I think Serrano is kind of, I mean, not Serrano. I think Katie Taylor is kind of backtracking. She's been in some very tough fights here lately, and I think Serrano may catch her at the right time and be able to pick her apart, take her up off her throne. But Serrano is highly skilled. I think she does MMA as well. Clarissa Shields have been supportive of her as well, but I think she's kind of going to be the one who's elevating or getting better, more notice put on her as far as the women's side of sports goes. Just based on how she's positioned herself, and now she got what's this cat, Jake Paul, tagging along, tag teaming with her as well. So I mean, very, very skilled women. Her and that Estrada fight was hella good too. Both of these women tonight put on some very good fights. It wasn't like it was something that bored the crowd. The crowd was entertained by what they watched with Serrano versus Gutierrez, and also what they watched with Estrada. I think that's her name, Estrada Arcenisa versus the girl Sativa, whatever her name was. That was some good women fight tonight. They put women's boxing up there where women boxing needs that injection in the arm, like you were saying.
Yeah. Before I go on, check this comment out from L-Dub Boxing, Reggie. He says, "What's good? Spence versus Ugas 3-belt unification is done for March. Stanionis has accepted step aside and will fight Butayev next." That's very interesting because that's a universal monster mash right there. Butayev and Stanionis. Frankenstein meets the werewolf, because those two guys right there, they're right out of the 50s universal horror flicks. It's like they got those styles that are, throwback, and it may be a very interesting battle between those two men, because They're a lot similar. They don't like to take steps backwards. So, you know, you can probably turn your TV color off and watch it in black and white, man, and put spider webs in the corner, because it's a monster match between those two guys. I'm telling you, Stanionis and Butayev. Yeah. But yeah, if that's going to be the next fight for Spence and Ugas, they should be getting it on. And that's the right direction for boxing, because Ugas earned his keep. He earned where he is right now, and after that, it should be Spence and Bud at some point. Bud might have to take a fight in between then, but I look forward to that. If that's what's coming next, I look forward to it. What are your thoughts on that, Reggie? That news?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good news for Stanionis to step aside, put you guys in that position. I think you guys earned it by defeating Pacquiao. I thought it was wrong to take him out of position, and it's just sad that these sanctioning organizations do all this maneuvering. They take something away from a guy, then they look at the picture of boxing, then they make new adjustments. They change the rules, then they put a guy who they try to do you guys wrong, and then they put him back in position to take the fight. And I'm like, that is wrong and jacked up. And OG, give me 1 second. I got to make a call and check on something real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
We got like 5 minutes.
Yeah, go ahead. I got things. Yeah, so I'm going through some of the chat here. I see my man Watcher is out there. Salute to you, Watcher. How you doing, bro? 88 Sports Talk. My man is there. Good to see you. Boli. DT, it's been a minute. Channel member. Haven't seen you in a while. As far as following up on the comments regarding Earl and Ugas getting it on, that's a good fight. 3 belts, as L Dub said, finally being on the line, getting that bit closer to undisputed. That's all we ever asked for, so we could have clarity in these divisions about who's the best fighter. And the next thing is to get the next, best contender up there to challenge that fighter. There are so many men who don't fight each other that are non-champions waiting around for a shot at one of those belts. But if one man had the belt, then you got to get going. You got to get your fights on, because, in order to put yourself in a position, you have to earn that contender spot. You have to earn the opportunity to challenge. And when champions who are undisputed select someone, they want to select someone that is reputable, So this is good for boxing all the way around, to allow these things to take place, and for the sanctioning bodies to get out of the way and try to make amends for some of the garbage that they've created. You know what I mean? So I look forward to seeing that. If March is the date and it can be made, man, we're going to start off the year pretty good, because March will be here before you know it, right? Just like being here in December right now. That came up so sudden. It was like after the Fury Wilder 3, the calendar just started flipping the pages, right? Because almost every weekend we've had fights. And it's like, I think we've had maybe 3 weekends off since that fight in October to now. So again, hats off to the sport of boxing for ending up, on a real positive note. And I can't speak enough about the women of boxing, how they've stepped it up. Man, have we seen some performances from these women. And it's a lot of them are smaller than Clarissa, so she can't fight those women, but for being at lower weight classes, but they've been mixing it up, man. big time. And this evening's matchup on DAZN, where we had a chance to see, what's her name, Seniesa Estrada, and she took on Maria Santiza. Man, that was a good fight. Those women were letting it fly, and Estrada has been knocking women out, if not down, over her last 7 opponents. And her knockdowns of Santiza tonight were exciting. They were like, you know, highlight reel type material. And when they perform like that, just like when Alicia Baumgardner performed, that knockout she had, it was like when Juan Manuel Marquez stopped Manny Pacquiao, that big right hand, boom. So the women are getting it done in boxing. They are going to not ask for focus. They're demanding the focus be taken up with them and the acknowledgement for their accomplishment, for their craft. You know, we're seeing it, and it's very entertaining. And I do believe that they are going to get bigger and greater, and the promoters are not going to be able to stand in their way, because the women being exciting like that, or like we've seen in this last quarter of the year, the promoters can't hold that back. They can't control that. And then a lot of them are lookers as well. Dude, that's self-promotion right there. All the promoters are going to have to do now is just make the dates and let them come in. I see you back, Reggie.
Yeah.
Did you hear what I was saying about the ladies? And I'm like talking about how this last quarter of the year, they have stepped up their game almost 2 times over. And I mentioned the fact that the ones who are so exciting right now, they're a lot smaller than Clarissa. So unfortunately, she can't fight those ladies. But man, have they been making their stamp on the sport of boxing and have kicked that door in to say, hey, look at us. You know what I'm saying? They have really made some strides in this last quarter of the year. And with great performances, exciting performances, knockouts and knockdowns, showing gut checks. I mean, they're doing a lot of what the men aren't even doing at this time. So it has to, you know, the alarm has to be sounded for them. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think some of these women have put themselves in good position by taking, you know, not stepping out and taking the leading role on trying to get their events put out there, but fighting on these men, the men's main events, and fighting as co-main events to be able to leapfrog themselves. And I think that's where Clarissa's fell with her pursuits of trying to be a superstar in the game. She just had to take a role and try to just easily work her way up just to get the attraction put on her. And it's just her being young, too overconfident, too cocky, and a little bit of arrogance that she thought she can do main event. She didn't need to lean on men, and that's kind of playing into a sexist equal rights thing that she was falling in line with. Where she could have took these approaches, should have been co-main events to maybe Wilder, Earl Spence fights, but now you're getting these Sanisa girls, you're getting what's her name, Serrano, you're getting Katie Taylor. They're getting put in these positions by being put on these big fight cards that, you know, and if they're in their country, they're drawing a lot of people that way. So when they get in front of the audience, they're going to be you know, display for, they put on here and they go out there and perform, and even their opponents go out here and perform. They just don't lay down. They try to give their best of efforts in here against these top women, and the fans are starting to like it. It was the same thing that worked for what made women's MMA big. There's a lot of these women start fighting behind these guys, putting on these events for guys because of something newly introduced. I think Don King was having that success with Christy Martin at one point. But MMA's done it right. And these women fighting on these undercards, they go in there and they scrap, man, because women like to fight. Much as women like to look cute and all that stuff, women love to fight. Women are women are very aggressive and vicious, and thank God he ain't make them stronger than us physically. But they love to fight, regardless of how pretty they may be. They'll get in there and smack the heck out of you if you set off the emotion with them. But it's just that's just the way that you it should have been done. Is just taking the secondary approach of being a co-main event, fighting on the guy's card and leapfrogging him. Same way an artist would do if he on concert tour with a megastar musician, and he gets to become an opening act, and people get to see him. They come in to see a superstar, and then a new star is born. Like, wow, who is this new guy performing? And then pretty soon, the dang main star be like, oh, I can't have this. Get this dude off the tour. But people start looking for who are those other folks, and that's possibly what can happen with these women who have fought on these guys co-main events, and pretty soon they'll lead the front. But I wish Clarissa do that. Maybe Clarissa has to do that. She has to get on like a Earl Spence or somebody undercard. She has to sit that ego crap to the side and get herself some better exposure. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, and she needs to pair herself up with several individuals if the promotion group can work like that. Like every time someone like Earl performs, or Bud is a free agent now, if he performs, they should pair up. Because that's a guaranteed audience, because people want to see Clarissa, people want to see those guys. So it's like they have to, sometimes people can be so selfish that they don't realize everybody can eat. And when everybody can eat, you can eat well, because by everybody eating, nobody's starving. You see? And that's what these guys got to learn, man. When Don King was putting on those multiple championship cards, those guys weren't all making millions off of that, but they were doing much better than if they were waiting around to try to headline their own card or something. It made a difference. You had Terry Norris, Julio Cesar Chavez, and even Christy Martin got thrown in there at a later point in time. But, guys like Winky Wright and Gerald McClellan, all the guys fighting on the same card, bro. And Don was like putting those cards on like every 2-3 months. It's like, and the winners went on to the next pay-per-view card. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it was a great time in boxing, man. Bob Arum couldn't even mess with that. And that's where Don was living, because remember, HBO, they found a way to squeeze him off of their network. So he took his promotion to King Vision, which was his pay-per-view company, and started putting bouts on pay-per-view. And Showtime wanted to make a deal with him to pick up those bouts, because they could have the rights to rebroadcast them a week later and stuff like that. So that's how Don and Showtime got together. But two things happened with him. The networks took his fights off the air when in the late 70s and up to the mid 80s, a lot of his championship fights were on local television. They took him off that. He went on to HBO. HBO tried to squeeze him too. They took him off that. So that's when he created King Vision and the pay-per-view. See, they were always doing the dirty things that they're still doing today. It's just that the players involved were different, at the time. But yeah, man, you got anything else on the pay-per-view card from tonight, Reggie, before we move on?
No, that was it on that one, man. And Tyron Woodley is done. And this dude calling out more MMA fighters now. This second MMA fighter he done knocked out, as a matter of fact. So he's looking to try to tear through the UFC.
Yeah. Shame. So let's dial it back to one event the Zerto versus Gonzalez card and Estrada Santizo, that was the co-main on DAZN this evening, Reggie. This was not a bad card. This was very interesting. To kick off first with Estrada versus Santizo, I was talking about that just a little bit while you were away from the mic. And I wanted to say this about Sanisa Estrada. They call her Supergirl or something like that, Super Bad, something like that. Dude, that woman got hands, Reggie. She got hands, and she ain't worried about taking a punch. But Santizo, who came in from, I think they said she came from Brazil or something. I don't want to get it incorrect, but she did come from outside the country, and she came to fight. And she was tagging Estrada with some great shots, but Estrada just basically picked up her output and started switching from orthodox to southpaw and catching her from weird angles. And every time she hurt Santizo, it was from a well-placed shot that she couldn't see from an angle that Estrada has changed to, switching like Bud Crawford. But man, it was an exciting scrap up. These two ladies were literally in there trying to do damage to each other. And Santizo just didn't have enough power on her punches to hurt Estrada enough, but she was nailing her. But I guess due to not being able to hurt her very bad, Estrada wasn't worried about the incoming. But the finishing of the fight, and she is a finisher, was quite crowd pleasing. The crowd like leaped up when she dropped her for the first time, and drove her into the ropes with some power shots. It was very interesting. Very interesting. So I know you said you caught some of it. What were your thoughts on this particular fight?
Man, I thought that was a pretty good scrap. I thought those women came out there and they went to bang. And this girl, it was that one moment at the first knockdown where Santizo landed a solid shot, because Santizo, skill-wise, she wasn't no match for Estrada. Like, Estrada's one of these top women within the women's side of boxing. Her hands, her combination work, her speed is unmatched by a lot of these women. Her base is good. She's smooth. She switches in between orthodox and southpaw. Casually. Her movements in between stances is, you almost don't even recognize, it's so smooth. But in this one where Santizo ends up coming back, she's throwing out big shots at Santizo. I'm jacking their names up. Sanisa was getting caught by Santizo with some big shots, and Santizo was catching her with nice shots. Estrada not being able to move out the way out of a lot of those punches, saw some redness up on her face. Then you have Santizo lands that big right hand shot on Estrada. Lands a big solid right hand shot on Estrada. I think she was feeling herself a little bit too much, because as she's throwing, that's when Estrada's letting off a quick left hand, ended up catching her and dropping her, spinning this girl as she's throwing a punch at the same time, sending her down to the ground. That girl got off the canvas and came back to fight even more. She was still a little bit hurt and buzzed from, but she still tried to fight. Santizo was, all right, let me stop changing her name. Estrada was unable to get her up out of there. Then they come into that next round. Woman seemed to get her composure back. She came out strong in that round. Came out very strong against Estrada, landing off some big shots, landing a lot of nice solid shots. And even in the round where she was stopped, I thought she was doing very good in there. Once again, she gets caught with another one of those type of shots. That one looked to hurt her. The ref didn't want to see her take no more punishment. He steps in to stop that one. I thought the stoppage, it was a pretty good stoppage. I thought she just would have got caught with something else. It was a big punch, and he got her up out of there because that girl wasn't going to quit. It was no quitting her. She kept trying to fight. But that's my thoughts on it. She's just outmatched, outgunned in here by Estrada.
And amazingly, they had the same amount of amateur fights, it was stated. I just think that the quality of fighters that Santizo fought, of course, were not the same quality of fighters that Estrada may have faced in her amateur run, but they had the same amount of amateur fights. Very interesting there. Now for the main event, where we saw Zurdo Ramirez taking on this gentleman, Gonzalez. He's a Cuban guy, Reggie. His name is Yunisiki Gonzalez. Kind of a weird name. I'll just call him Young Gonzalez. He was about one of the strongest light heavyweights I've seen in a long time. The guy was like a bruiser, but unlike most Cuban fighters, he doesn't have that boxing skill that they are so well and duly noted for. He's a slugger. Man, his punches are strong, and he's so strong that he doesn't even have the right snap on his, just like clubbing shots. And he caught Ramirez early in the first round with one of those heavy haymakers, and it made Ramirez kind of rethink life a little bit, because he didn't fight like he normally fought. They were begging him in the corner to go to the body and stuff, but he realizes, if I go in there and try to go to this guy body, I'm going to give him more chances to come up top and bang me up out of there. So he just opted to, kind of jab and put them mid-range and long-range shots on Gonzalez. And he had Gonzalez hurt a few times or dazed, but it was interesting because the body work is what would have got him out of there, but he couldn't take those risks to go in. So did you notice that little cat and mouse play? Because Gonzalez is balancing everything, but it was almost glancing blows were hurting Ramirez. And his face was starting to bust up when they showed him in the corner. So he was having a rough go in there. And it was a good test for him because, he's coming up from 168. And he's talking about he wants Bivol. You know what I mean? So it was a good test for him. And he passed it.
Yeah, I'm glad he's smart enough to call Bivol rather than Beterbiev. But I think Bivol will give Ramirez some issues because he fought Gonzalez. Gonzalez, I don't know the age of Gonzalez, but I remember seeing Gonzalez years ago. I think when he had his I don't know if it was a debut fight over in America to where he was cheated in his fight, to where he gave up. He ended up giving a good affair of himself. I think even it should have been an upset because the crowd turned on who was like the favorite fighter for that day. I think it was his American debut. And it was where he went in there and he was beating the heck out of this dude, and the judges ended up robbing him. And he was kind of sad about that, being that he was cheated. He thought his opportunities were going to go, and he ended up getting more opportunities from that fight because I think it was a PBC fight. They felt that he won. He showed tremendous account for himself. He won the crowd over, and the people who were fans of the guy who started out as the star of the fight ended up being booed, and they cheered this guy on, so he got more opportunities. But I hadn't seen him in a long time because I know he suffered a couple of losses. But he came in there and he gave Zurdo everything and handled. That first round, he was beating on Zurdo, and I was looking like, and I was like, Zurdo think he gonna go up here against the Beterbievs? Like, he better not think about no Beterbiev. Beterbiev to destroy this guy. And I said Bivol will even give him tough work if he steps in there against Bivol, because he's fighting and somebody was saying this is the second past prime fighter that he's been in here with, and he faced a tough go around against this guy. But when he started to get his work off, started to kind of whip out the jab, fire off some hooks, he was getting his work off. But this guy Gonzalez started to come back with his own stuff, and I think he rocked Zurdo a couple of times. He hurt Zurdo, was sending Zurdo back. Zurdo started to take back steps when he started holding his ground. He was hitting Zurdo with some good shots. He showed good head movement, ducking under Zurdo's shots, making him miss. And this is one of Zurdo's toughest fight, but he showed that he can endure a lot. I know it was that one that one time where they go to step in and he ended up hitting Zerto with his head. That was a massive hit where
Oh
his
man,
head
that was
collides with
almost
Zerto's
like
jaw.
he was playing football, Reggie. Like he and then kind of just whacked him with his head, you know. But he was
Yeah.
falling off balance. But the way his head whacked Zerto on the jaw, it wouldn't have surprised me if Zerto went down or turned his back and was like, "Hey, I can continue," because he got hit pretty hard. That was almost harder than any punch the guy threw at him all night.
Yeah, that's why I was shocked to see him not buckle from that. That was a hard collision right there. See him, so he survived that. Then seeing Zerto gets caught with a few more punches throughout this fight to where he was hurt. He was hurt with like a short straight left shot that backed him up, but Gonzalez wasn't able to kind of capitalize on that because Gonzalez was still hurt from where he walked in. Where Zerto kind of changed the fight was when Gonzalez was coming at him and Zerto jumped in with that left hook and caught him the first time he buzzed him and rocked him. So it was hard for him to recover to fully get his legs back from up under him. But even in that moment where he had Zerto hurt from that punch, he still didn't have no legs behind him to be able to try to go in there and finish him off. But he gave Zerto a very, very tough affair in there. But Zerto was willing to accept that challenge. He continued to fight on. He didn't give up anything. He didn't look to concede to the guy. He marched back forward along with Gonzalez. But Gonzalez really never recovered from that left hook that hit him. But he just showed his tough will to continue to go forward. I thought the stoppage was good. That referee, I didn't like that ref. Thought that ref was doing a lot to be in the way of that fight. Didn't like the way in which he was reacting to Gonzalez. Like when he took the point away was BS. He kept staring at Gonzalez throughout the fight. I don't know if Gonzalez can feel the referee there. If he can feel the referee staring at him, and it just didn't look cool to me. But the fighters just kept on fighting. They continued to press forward and ignoring that referee who was interfering with the fight. But ultimately, it was a tough fight for Zerto. Zerto ended up pulling off the stoppage victory, and it was a good test for him. But I want to see what he does against Bivol if he does take that Bivol fight. Bivol being smaller, 175, that's what he needs to test himself up against, being that he's moving up. He needs to step up in competition. But that's my thoughts on that.
What do you think about a possible fight between Zerto and Joe Smith?
I don't know if didn't Joe Smith get whooped on in his last fight? I don't know what Joe Smith would bring to Zerto. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you know, he seems to do well against the guys who are supposed to be good. That's the thing about him. He's like an X factor type dude. If he fights another so-called journeyman or whatever, he can struggle life and death. But you put him in there with somebody who's supposed to be championship caliber or former champion, he be whooping these guys. It's just kind of weird how Joe has found himself in the sport of boxing, you know?
Most definitely.
Yeah, so I'm hearing some kind of yeah. Oh, that's okay. I was hearing some noise that's coming from something my wife's doing. But yeah, man, check this out. The fight went like a little longer than it should have, but when that referee stepped in to finally stop it, young Gonzalez just grabbed the ref, hugged, and picked him up. I was like, was he thanking him for stopping it? Or I don't know what that was all about. But I found that to be a comical moment in the fight. But these guys, hey man, you know what, Reggie? It was a tough battle for Zerto. You got to take your hat off to the guy. He had and I've watched several of his fights. I think I've seen about 4 of Zerto's fights. He had a look on his face I had seen before in this fight tonight. And that look was like, you know, maybe kind of bewilderment. How am I going to get to this guy? You know, because he knows that it's a, you know, scheduled 12 rounder or whatever, but he was trying to figure things out. And he was able to get the he didn't seem a lot confident, and he definitely wasn't doing that thing that his corner was asking of him. The one thing that he did start doing that his corner asked was, you gotta use the jab more now. You gotta use the jab, and he did do that. So I give him credit for that. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Who the next opponent will be? I think they had a couple of other light heavies. They even had Danny Jacobs face there on the screen, but I didn't see my boy Joshua Buatsi on the screen, and he fights on DAZN. So I found that to be kind of interesting, Reggie, that they didn't have Buatsi on the screen.
Oh yeah, no, they trying to protect. That's Oscar trying to protect Zerto. He knows where his fighters are limited at. He refused to put him in there against threats.
Yeah, that's right. That was a Golden Boy promotion. Yeah, I don't think about that too much, but I do remember seeing Oscar. They interviewed him in between the fights, and that dude looked like he was gassed up, full of something. Man, it's like, how did he just? I don't know, but that's a whole nother conversation. Let's get down to the Fox card, Reggie. Now, like I said, my streaming wasn't working very well, so I just listened in to the Morrell and Fox main event, and I caught KQKC's. What were your thoughts on this? I know that Morrell only 4 fights, and he's highly touted and whatnot. What were your thoughts about the action that you were able to see here?
I mean, for this one, that's the other thing. I'm like, where does Morrell come from? Why is he being pushed through so fast? But I guess they did it for Loma. He ought to get the same thing if he's an Olympic champion or whatnot. But he's being pushed to the front, man, getting headlines. I mean, salute to him. But in this one, he was facing some adversity as well, man. There's some things that he had challenges against, and it wasn't like Fox was just the toughest of opponents or the greatest of opponent. He had issues to where he wasn't, and he has no jab. That's the other thing about Fox. He comes in here looking to get guys up out of here to keep things exciting. But it was hard for him at moments. If Fox was a stronger puncher, that boxing would have gave Morrell all sorts of trouble. If Fox would have just landed some cleaner punches, utilized that jab a little bit more movement, Morrell was having issues with that. And this dude did a good job making Morrell miss, getting up under shots. But he just didn't have the chin. Like the one punch that dropped him was a punch inside the clinch that Morrell landed on. That was Morrell couldn't land no strong enough punch from the outside, but the punch that was so short was the one that was able to drop this guy. Then from there he was starting to get caught with shots that buzzed him, having to hold on, but he was giving Morrell some shots. I like the way that Fox fought that third round because he decided to hold his ground, not move so much. He weathered the early onslaughts from Morrell and was holding his ground and forcing Morrell to kind of take some steps back. Morrell had that look on his face. He wasn't used to opponent giving that kind of resistance to him. He's used to going in there, running through fighters and getting them up out of there very quick. But he had to put in some work, put some rounds in. But he had no jab. I think they showed a punch stat at one point to where he wasn't really landing too many jabs. And that's not a good thing. He's going to have to really work and tune up some things. I don't know if he is an Olympic champion, whatever he's learned as far as coming up as an Olympian or amateur, because he got to be something to be getting this much attention that quick in his career. But he got to go back to working on some things. And I know they said he had to switch trainers because being unfocused became a thing. And I kind of can see that this level of attention is starting to get to him to where they had to move him up out of. First, they moved him from Florida. I heard him talking about he's getting too much of attention down there was becoming a distraction. They try to base him there in Minnesota. It started becoming a distraction. So then they had to move him to Houston with Ronnie Shields for this fight. But so he's going to have to learn how to control this level of fame or whatever is coming to him to where it's not a distractor for him. But even though he won this fight, I see there's some issues he has with facing certain kind of boxers. So he's going to have to really work on some things, because the guy's slick with better punching power, more activity is going to give Morrell issues. But that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. And at some point, I guess I'll be able to check it out. Somebody will have it up on YouTube where I can watch the performance. But just listening to the call of it, I couldn't really get a for the action as far as how he was performing. But you say you think guys with higher volume of activity and maybe a little more aggression may give him some trouble, right?
Yeah, I definitely think they will. He just he doesn't work off a jab. Everything's just the short power shots. He likes throwing hooks, exchange on the inside, a jab in his face will give him issues. I thought if Fox was a more aggressive, stronger fighter, he could have did something to him, but he was frustrating Morrell at times.
I don't know why they want to rush these guys so badly. You know, it's like you could still have limited amount of fights. Like Bitterbeef got like 16 fights or 17 fights now, right? Same as Loma. But the way you do that is each time out, the guy has to fight a fighter that has something that he hasn't faced before that he got to overcome. And, you know, his success in his development and how he can move forward. Shakur Stevenson has been put in that type of position as well. Just padding your record with knockouts, so you could say 25 knockouts and 26 fights, that's not going to help you very much. You could have 16 fights and your last 4 or 5 fights would have been against the type of opposition that really tests things about your character, your stamina, you know, your ability to focus in, cutting the ring off on a guy that you got to go track down and go get or something like that. But they just seem now they just want to move somebody, you know, just move them. Let's get up to the shot as fast as possible. That's why a lot of the championships change hands after a title defense or two, because it's like these guys are not schooled up enough, man. Yeah, and there's so many titles out there, almost anybody could get one. How many guys can reign and defend, you know, the titles? That's the thing that comes to mind. So, yeah, I'll have to catch that on a replay. Maybe one day in a couple days, it'll be up on YouTube and I can check it out. Let's get down to the first card that was, you know, of the day. And the main event took place late in the afternoon, early evening. I was expecting that fight to take place earlier in the day because it started so early. But Parker versus Chisora 2. And that was my main focus watching that particular fight. These two guys, what can you say about Joseph Parker, man? This guy, does he really want to box, or is he out there doing it for another reason or something? And you look at Derek Chisora, something that I noticed about him, Reggie, in this against Parker. This is probably the best condition that Chisora has been in about 2, 3, maybe even 4 fights. He was slimmed down for Chisora's build, and he had a musculature about his body that I hadn't seen in a long time. He was in shape, but I question his ability, his punch resistance. There's something about him that tells me that I think Chisora is a little punchy, bro. And they keep sticking it in there, and I'm hoping he doesn't get hurt. But Parker hit him with a shot that was an obliterating shot, but it was a clean punch. And then he shoved him off, and Chisora wobbled back into the room like he had been hit by Mike Tyson or something. And I was looking at his legs. I was like, man, the guy's legs is gone, you know? So I'm watching this fight. I wasn't scoring it because I'm like, I don't really have an interest, but it's a heavyweight fight, and I'm looking to watch a heavyweight scrap. Man, I am not impressed by Joseph Parker at all. At all. And if Derek Chisora had a little bit of education in boxing, he should have been able to beat Joseph Parker, because Joseph Parker gives you opportunity. I could see why now he got that decision over Ruiz in his home country, because if they had fought any, Ruiz would have got that decision. That was if there ever was one. Your thoughts on these two guys?
Man, I was tripping when I forgot what time the fight was coming on, but when these guys went at it, they went to war. That was a crazy exchange between those dudes for the first 3 rounds. And like I said, it was the most I've seen out of Chisora in a long time. The most I've seen Chisora give in a fight like that. And I was like, man, somebody's getting knocked out. Somebody's not making it to the full, to the end of this fight. Somebody's definitely going out, because they were letting off some big, heavy shots. But right at that moment where the activity was just too much, it's letting off too much for Chisora. I think Chisora is a fighter, got to pace himself. His cardio just doesn't hold up at this point of his career. So he's good for about a good 3 or 4 rounds before it begins to fade, him being tired more than hurt. And he was getting caught with some stuff because he started leaning forward. And that's when Parker began to have that uppercut that was right there for him, and was catching the leaning forward Chisora clean, putting it on him and able to drop him at that one point in the fight. There was another time where I think the ref called it a countdown because the ropes held him up. It was just fatigue starting to set in there on Derek Chisora. Parker came in heavier, so he looked stronger to me, but he just doesn't have that. He just doesn't have the pop to get someone up out of there, even though I thought he probably was going to knock Chisora out. Then you see Chisora, after getting up, turn his back and walk towards the corner, and Parker still was hesitant to go in after him, because the first time he tried it, Chisora ended up finding some level of energy to begin to kind of strike on him. But I just think that his cardio is always going to be a factor for him. He shows tremendous heart. He doesn't give up, but it's just not enough. No, the fans over there in UK, I seen the way they were cheering for him. They got a song for Chisora. But he's just hit the end of the road. That should be the last fight of his career. Don't know how he passes physicals or whatnot. I don't know how a lot of boxers pass physicals. I don't think they're strenuous physicals to be able to get a license. But this should be the end of it. He should hang it up before he has some type of. I'm pretty sure his heart can't take that anymore. That's the reason why he's. That's the real reason why he's fading out. His heart can't take this game of boxing. It's just too much for him. And hopefully that's it. But Parker's in the same boat. I don't know what Parker can do to anyone else in the division. I don't think Parker's going to be able to be a threat for anyone. He's come to the point in his career where it's about time to hang up the gloves. I just thought it was entertaining for the UK crowd, and that should be about it for both fighters. They should go ahead and hang the gloves up and sell into the sunset. But that was an entertaining fight, and I didn't think it was close. Didn't think it was a close fight at all. Just shows heart, but he didn't give too much. He didn't have too much to give. That's my thoughts on it.
So you see what I see when it comes to his punch resistance and everything, but it's like, it's not just the punch resistance, but it's like his legs, maybe too many years of not being in the best of shape and stuff, and then still going through with fights, because when you're not in shape and you still fight anyway, you actually take on more damage than you would as you really gotten yourself in shape. And I can see him walking on his heels and things like that. That's not a good thing. And it's funny. Parker could hit him with a solid shot and it wouldn't do nothing. Then Parker moments later could hit him with a glancing blow and he be in trouble. You know what I'm trying to say? And it's like, that's when you know when a guy is, you know, he needs to stop. He needs to stop right now. He probably still should have stopped like a couple years ago. But the damage that's showing up now, 5 years from now, that's going to be really bad, Reggie. So, but yeah, I'm seeing that from CHISORA. And I know he's a fan favorite and everything over in the UK, but it's time for that guy to hang him up.
I think it's definitely time, and someone needs promoters, whoever it is. Eddie Hearn needs to stop trying to get this guy fights. Stop trying to. If you put money in this dude, in front of this dude, he's gonna step in the ring, and that mess needs to stop. And CHISORA needs to stop being stupid by jumping in the ring with these guys. He ain't beating nobody. He ain't doing nothing but becoming a punching bag over there for the entertainment of other people. And he's probably gonna end up one of these dudes who's gonna be a vegetable at some point in his life.
Yeah, and I hate to see that to any of these fighters, man. I hate to see that happen to any of them. So hopefully, you know, he will pay attention to what's being thought of and say, hey, you know, go train younger guys or something. I don't know. But, and remember, in the gym, whatever's happening in the gym, it's all a part of contributing to damage, you know, physical damage. So sparring, you know, and all of that, you got to get away from that. And I know my man Watcher, who always is up on what's happening over there, he says 14 years of fighting, professional, you know. And he's been in there with some pretty big dudes too, you know, because they've got big guys over there. It's like 6'5", 6'9". You know, it takes its toll. Takes its toll. So, but yeah, Reggie, this was another weekend of a lot of fights, man. A lot of boxing for this weekend, and we saw some good action. I mean, just like we want to talk about, you know, what happened last night. You know, it's like, wow, you know, Bitterbeef and Marcus Brown, and then tonight with all the different fights that they had, 2 different DAZN broadcasts, the pay-per-view broadcast and the Fox broadcast. So we were inundated with a lot of action, man. And at least you could say that on each and every card, something happened that was worth seeing, but maybe, you know, not necessarily worth paying for and things of that nature. It's kind of weird because they kind of got us by the bottom, you know, with what they're trying to do with making us pay for these cards. Because you think about, we had like 4 pay-per-views since what, November? And dude, them fights weren't pay-per-view fights. So, you know, we got to start banging the drum on that as well. Because don't try to sell me a Tuesday night fight as a pay-per-view fight. Huh? No. And if they just put the people on the air like they should, the ratings for the TV that night, it's going to go up. The ratings for boxing always go up if you put boxing on regular TV. Let people see these guys. That's how they really become household names, not through social media, but by seeing them because they were on TV. Man, I was watching this fight last night on TV, and so-and-so, so-and-so. I remember when Isaac Dogbay popped on the scene, Reggie, that I was at work, and a guy who's a fitness trainer for one of the people there, he came in and he asked me, he's like, hey man, did you see that fight on ESPN? And I was like, yeah, I watched ESPN last night. He was like, yeah, that little guy, the something dog. He couldn't say his name, you know. I was like, yeah, Dog Bay. He's like, yeah, that little guy is something else, ain't he? And that was before he fought Navarrete and everything, you know. But that was, I think, the first time he was on ESPN on television. And we had a little conversation about it. But you see, it was like he was watching, you know, flipping through the stations. ESPN had boxing on. He was watching, and then he saw Dog Bay, and he liked them. You know, he's like, but that's how people came into knowledge and familiarity with the fighters, by seeing them on TV. You can't see them if you're hiding them on apps or on pay-per-view, huh? People gonna be like, who's that? Now, PBC and Fox, they do a good thing when they have their matches on TV, because, you know, people can see them like that. But I want people to understand this about Fox FS1 and then Fox, you know, boxing on Fox. They have a time slot that they air boxing. And win, lose, or draw, Reggie, those fights always end within that time slot, which gives me thoughts about fixed fights. Because, you know, you could have a timeout in boxing. The ref have to stop. The doctors look at a cut, this and that. They have controversial things. They have to call time for a foul. Different things happen. Fights end early, you know. Why is it always that those Fox broadcasts always end within that time frame? If it's 2 hours, it ends at 1:58. I've noticed that. So, you know, I'm saying all that to say simply, they need to just put the boxing on TV for fighters that's growing, coming up, this and that, so we get familiar with them. And then championship fights like Earl facing Bud or something like that, that's a pay-per-view fight. But I don't think that Earl facing Ugas is a pay-per-view fight. I don't think so. It'll probably be because of Earl, you know. He's had most of his last few fights on pay-per-view, but people don't know who Ugas is. So we know who Ugas is, but, you know, there you go. And all the people from the Philippines know who Ugas is because he whooped Manny. So, but yeah, man, go ahead and give us some final thoughts, Reggie, and everything. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, man. You guys can find me on Boxing Conversation with Reggie Owens. 1 and 2, always at Boxing Conversations, even if I got to start new channels, which I might have to, just based on the content I do. So I'm always starting new channels. I got a book reading channel and politics channel. And that's about it, man. I got to get out of here and find out something that happened back home. But that's all I got.
Okay. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for me as well. I appreciate everybody that tuned in this evening, man. We had another very good show, a lot of fights, which is some of those undercard fights are not really where our focus is. We want to focus in on those main events, and we got a chance to do that. But salute to everybody that joined us. Appreciate you. Smash that like button on the way out if you haven't on your way in. And just know that we'll be back again with some more post fights as soon as the next fights are on the horizon. This is STORMYBMAN for my man Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens. We out of here. Everybody have a great week. Merry Christmas to everybody. Peace. Peace.